That is completely fine. And we are actually at the beginning of an ice and snowstorm right now. So if my internet goes out, that's why. I'll try to reconnect immediately. But yeah.
That means winter is really bad over there.
Yeah, it comes in waves.
So maybe we can wait for 2 minutes more, Sarah. Okay? Then we can start. In the meantime, I would like to ask you a quick question. What is the meaning of deduce? If you can just give us a short meaning and the way I'm pronouncing it. Is it right? Deduce?
Yes, you are pronouncing that right. Um, well, as you all know, it's an online application for analyzing qualitative and mixed methods data, but the name deduce, I believe the origins of it, they played around with a couple different names. I believe it started off as ethnonotes, but then it got larger. And I think, it's kind of a play on words from deductive,
Oh,
deductive coding, deduce. Yeah.
that's right. So it is working more on deductive logic or, no, rather than inductive, right?
Actually, that's the funny thing about it is the system is set up to encourage inductive coding, but you can do both. Yeah.
But I like the interface a lot of deduce.
Me too. That's why I started using it in my master's program. I tried Atlas and in Vivo,
Mhm.
but Deduce just seemed more straightforward, at least to me.
I think we can start off and to give a brief introduction about you, Sarah. Good evening, first of all. And I need to welcome each and every person who is attending the workshop, which is titled as Introduction to Quantitative Research. And today it is our honor that Dr. Sarah Groomer from Dedoose is present here to give her presentation and little bit of understanding about the software itself. And she is the director of academic engagement for Dedoose. Number one, she's the academic director for Institute for Mixed Methods Research. So I welcome you, Sarah. And without wasting much time out here waiting for the others to join up, I would like to utilize this time and prefer to learn more about Dedoose in qualitative research. So it's all yours right now. Thank you for joining us up.
Yeah, again, thank you for inviting me. I'm going to share my screen here and I'll go over a brief presentation to begin, and then we can hop directly into the application and I can show you around the system. I'm a little new to Google Meet, so I'm sorry if there's a delay here, but can you see my presentation?
Yes, yes, Sarah.
Okay, okay, great. So the agenda for today, like I said, I'm going to go over some of the foundations of Deduce, what is Deduce in the first place, pricing, just a little bit on those technicalities, and then go over some of those foundational elements. And then we will hop in the application and I'll take you through some of the very basic foundational features and what that looks like. within Dedoose itself. I'll be throwing a lot of information at you during that time. Just know that it will make a lot of sense to you when you're in the system, and it always makes more sense with your own data as opposed to looking at somebody else's. So first off, yeah, what is Dedoose? You've already explained it well. It's an application for analyzing primarily your qualitative data, but we can also handle mixed methods data as well. A couple key points that I want to hit on here that are unique to Dedoose is that it's cloud-based. So it's not actually a software that you download, that you purchase and download to your individual computer. So you would go online, you download it, and it works like an app. So that makes it easy to collaborate with other users. So just each user downloads it from the internet, just like you would an app on your iPhone or anything like that. And that just makes it so much easier to collaborate in real time with other users because you don't have to go through each person sending it to the other person or downloading an extra application. It's very intuitive, and I'm sure if you've been in the system, once you get a handle of the terminology, you'll find that there are multiple different ways to do things in the system, so you can find a way that works for you. We like to think we have outstanding support, of course. The security features, if you wanted to talk more about that in the Q&A, I'm happy to. And if you've ever checked out our pricing page, it's very affordable, both on the individual level, group level, and we have an institutional option. So if you have an institute or university that you're working for, and they would like to purchase it on behalf of students, faculty, and staff, we can do that as well. Alrighty, and I also like to zoom out and look at the overall purpose of Dedoose, and that is primarily to help with data management and to maximize your data analysis process. So some people have this misconception that Dedoose will code the data for you and that it removes the researcher from the process, but that is not the case at all. So it's basically using technology to systematize and replicate the traditional qualitative data analysis process so you can focus on diving into your data, coding, and the program keeps track of all those connections that you're making in the data. And then on the back end, there are some really useful data visualization and analysis charts that can help you disaggregate your data along various units of analysis that you're interested in. For instance, if you wanted to compare your codes and themes across demographic variables, track change over time, any variable you can think of, you can do that with Dedoose. Alrighty, so I want to go over the foundational components of Dedoose and some of the language that Dedoose uses. So first off, we have media, and this just refers to the raw data that you upload into the system. So this could be transcripts, images, videos, audio, survey data, etc. Next, we have descriptors. So this is any quantitative or categorical data associated with those individual pieces of media. So you can think of this in terms of participant demographics. If you wanted to attach the research site as a unit of analysis, track change over time, like I mentioned before. And again, any other unit of analysis or even survey data, multiple choice questions, anything like that. Next, you have excerpts. So that is just the snippets and smaller portions of your data that you're actually attaching codes to. So usually when you make an excerpt right away, you're going to be attaching a code to it. So they're kind of one and the same. But you also can leave excerpts uncoded if you know there's something there, but you're not sure what to put on it. So I have a quick example here of what this means. So for instance, let's say you have a video file and a transcript. You upload it into the system, and these are both coming from participant 1, and you're interested in these demographic variables. So you input woman, she was a second-year student, and she was 24 years old. Now, when you start analyzing the data, let's say you go into that transcript and you find a passage that is speaking to your research questions, you can just go ahead and highlight that, and that would create that excerpt that we just talked about, and then you can attach a code to it. Just another example of that. And with the video piece, let's say there's a 15-second clip of a participant talking in class, you can code directly on the video itself. And let's say it was just like a really rich clip that spoke to a lot of things in your research, you can go ahead and attach multiple codes to that. Quick note here, I like to remind people that there's also great memo options within Dedoose. So you can attach these to individual excerpts, overall pieces of media, so an overall reflective memo on a transcript, for instance, or you can write freeform, which is what I like to do, especially to scaffold my data analysis writing and kind of bridge that process so that it's not such a shock once I'm done with analysis and then I'm like, oh my God, I have to write all this up. So you can do different types of memos and you can categorize those in the memos tab, which we will go over later today. And the power of Dedoose lies a lot in the data visualization and chart options that we have. I won't go over each of these because it's more explanatory if you actually see it in the system. And I'll present some of my dissertation data that hopefully will illuminate why these charts are so useful. So I'm going to pause there for any questions while I switch over to the Dedoose application.
I think, Sarah, I have the question because I have gone through the rules as such. So here, as far as I can see, the data that we are keying over there, descriptors are playing a very important role. Am I right? Yeah.
Correct.
Now, what is the reason? Because I haven't seen this thing in any other tool, basically. And here you are not only giving emphasis later on, I think so, after the analysis, you are focusing on the statistical maps also, correct, into that. So my first question to you would be, from the data, why the descriptors are playing that kind of a role? What is the reason behind it? Because usually when I'm taking an interview, okay, I have noted down the gender, the age, and that is it. However, in Dedoose, I'm seeing that you are playing a good, I mean, it has a very important role. So maybe you will have to explain to me what is the reason behind it. So, is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So it adds a whole new dimension to your analysis so that you don't just have to rely on your coding scheme. So it allows you to disaggregate all of your data, all of your codes by any of those descriptor/demographic variables that you're interested in. Most people, like you said, do use it as demographics because most of us are qualitative researchers that use the program. So yeah, race, gender, age, yeah, any other demographic categorical variable that you're interested in. It allows you to map your coding scheme based on those descriptors to find different patterns, similarities, differences, etc., along those different descriptors. In terms of quantitative data, there's also great analysis options. You can run t-tests if you have some quantitative data that are attached to your descriptors. A lot of folks who use surveys, you can upload the survey into the system. And if you have quantitative data in that survey and qualitative data, the system will automatically know which is which. And so your qualitative data will be housed in the media tab, excuse me. And then your quantitative data will be categorized as descriptors. So if you had any sort of scale rating or any numbers associated with your data, you could run some pretty cool tests with those, and also different ratios. For instance, the descriptor ratio multi-chart that's presented on the screen right now. But that will also make more sense once I start going over the analysis charts.
Okay, right. Thank you. Now, one more thing that I wanted to ask you is when you are importing the media file, as you said, maybe a picture or something, you specifically mentioned only for 15 seconds, or we can import even, let's say, for 5 minutes kind of a film frame, or should we say, or do we have to restrict only for 15 seconds when we are working with media files, especially?
That's a great question. No, they can be, I've uploaded data that was 90 minutes. I've had some people, 3-minute video clips for commercial analysis and stuff like that. That example for the 15 seconds, I was just trying to show that once you have that whole 90-minute media file in the system, that you can actually code it in its totality and pick out 15-second chunks to attach code to. Or it doesn't have to be 15 seconds. You can set the parameters and code directly on the video.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, this is Asha. I just want to clarify if I got you right. So every code is attached to the descriptor. So if you would like to make a comparison among the code with the different demographics, it's possible, right?
Correct. And
Okay.
that's if you want to use descriptors. It's not required, but for instance, right here. So in this little window, we're on the home screen right now where it's giving you options for a lot of the different main tabs that we have up top here. But yeah, just for an example for this question, the codes in this project are going to be vertical here. So reading by mother, duration, and then you can disaggregate that coding scheme by any of the descriptors that you had. So SES, for example, and it would disaggregate reading by mother by those different socioeconomic status variables.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Alrighty, so I'm going to go over a couple of these main tabs up top because they're really important for orienting you to the program and if you're going to be working in teams or collaborating with folks. So whenever you download Dedoose, when you first download it, you'll probably show up in the demo project, and you can tell by looking in the upper right-hand corner. It will say the project name up here. So if you're ever wondering what project you're in, you can always reference it up here. This reload button, I always like to tell folks that if ever the system is acting slow or something, just go ahead and hit reload because sometimes it just needs a refresh. It doesn't happen very often. The question mark here will lead you to the Help Center and all of our different resources. We also have a YouTube page with really great video tutorials that are pretty to the point, 1 minute long, just helping folks. We also have the instant messenger feature. So if you have multiple people working on one project, you'll be able to see who is actively in that project with you, and you can type a message to them and send it. And so you can communicate about, which file you're coding, or if you had questions about interpretations or anything like that, you could do so in this instant messenger chat. And this little tab will show you if there are any active users in the project. It will also take you to the project chat. And then lastly, we have all of these main tabs up here. You have your home screen, and I'll go in depth into these later, but I just want to give you a preview. You have your codes tab. So this will house your whole code book and give you a preview of some of the code analysis charts. The media tab will house all of your raw data that you upload, and you can upload it into the system from this tab if you'd like. The excerpts tab will house all of the individual excerpts you've made throughout your project. And from here, you can do some advanced filtering if you want to only look at, certain excerpts from one participant or from one demographic variable. You can do some of that filtering here if you would want to. The descriptor tab, so this is where you would create your descriptors. Sometimes this can get a little confusing, but I always like to tell folks to just look over here to the far left into the set fields, and this is where you will create the demographic or categorical fields that you're interested in. Then we have the Analyze tab, which houses all of our analysis charts. There are dozens and dozens of them, and they're categorized in terms of both methodology, but also codes, by codes, by descriptors, etc. And they live in multiple places, so you can access them from multiple different areas. We have the Memos tab, so this will keep track of all the memos that you write during your project, and you can categorize those into groups, and that's especially helpful if you're working in a team as well, to keep everything organized. We have our training center, and this is where you can conduct IRR tests. It is along Cohen's kappa, I believe, and it will spit out that actual number for you. If you want to talk more about this later, there are better options for actually going about, reaching a high level of agreeability qualitatively, where you're actually talking to your team. There are options for that as well, but this will give you the raw number. The security tab is where you would go to add other users to your projects or anything like that. And the data sets tab, we won't be going over this in depth today, but this is where you can do some really advanced filtering. So if you had a large data set and you only wanted to view a certain subset of that data, you can do so here, and you can even save it as a data set so that you don't have to put on that filter in the future. So you could just save that data set, come in here, load it up, and then start your analysis. Alrighty, so I want to go through creating a project in case folks are brand new to the program, and then we'll go over some of the basics of coding and some quick tips and tricks along coding. So to create a new project, you would go to the Projects tab here on the far right. You can always hit the addition icon to import anything, or you can hit the Create Project button down here on the lower right. I'll title it Test Project. You can put in a project description, and you can also add an extra layer of encryption. All of your data in the system is already encrypted. But if it's really sensitive data and you want to add another layer, you can. But just be warned, we at Dedoose don't keep track of these passwords. They're not stored anywhere. So if you lose it, your project is gone for good. So we always like to warn people about that. I'm gonna hit submit. And there we go. We have a nice clean user interface that we can start importing data into. A couple different ways to import data. As always, you can hit that little addition icon, or you can hit the import data button to the left. And this will pull up a window asking you what type of data you have. So like I referenced earlier, you can import a spreadsheet. If you have, any survey data, the survey importer is a really awesome tool. You can import text. So I always like to tell folks, if at all possible, if you're importing transcripts or documents, try to have them be Word documents over PDFs. Word documents behave better in the system. It's more simple for the system to read, and you have more options if you want to export them as well. So when in doubt, try to keep it a Word document. You can also import images, audio, create a blank document if you want to copy and paste text into it, PDFs, and video, which we've already talked about. You can also import other projects. So if you were using a different software beforehand, we have a converter within the system that it can help you convert it to a Dedoose format. for purposes of today, I'm just going to import a fake transcript here. It will let you know that it's being processed, and with transcripts, it is very quick. So now you see your media file right there. I'm actually going to go to the media tab to look at this as well. So you'll see the person who uploaded it, the date, time, and then you'll see that there are no memos attached to it, no descriptors yet, and it'll also show you the length. So I always like to tell people too that once you go into this document, you have a lot of options along this top window. So if you wanted to change the title or add a description to your media files, you can. You just hit that little gear icon and that pulls it up for you. You can always export your coded documents into a Word document. And that's cool because it does keep your code applications attached to it, so you can easily view those outside of the system. You have the search feature if you wanted to search for a specific word or string of text. You can do so there to go and jump to it. And then you also have the settings panel to the far left. So this is great if you want to increase or decrease font size. You can input line numbers and toggle on or off memos if you don't want to view your memos. If there was something in the transcript, in the document that you wanted to edit, a typo for instance, you can do so by hitting this unlock button, and that allows you to edit that document, and then you would just lock it again, and it's going to ask you, do you want to save your changes? Hit yes. So I always like to tell people that that is an option because a lot of people catch, tiny mistakes in their system, in their transcripts. Okay, now for the fun part, coding. If you want to take a more deductive approach, you can start building your code book before you actually view your data. You can do that in the Codes tab. And you would do that wherever there is a codes workspace, you can edit, add, and delete codes. So you'll see this main codes workspace in multiple places in the system. Let's say I did want to create some codes based on my research questions before I started going into the data. You would hit the little addition icon here, and then that brings up the window to create your new code and title it. Always recommend putting in at least a vague description, especially if you're working in teams. To the question of, can Dedoose only analyze interviews? No. So it can handle survey data, images, audio, video, focus group data. I don't know what other types of data there would be. Any sort of documents in terms of Word documents or PDFs you can put in the system. There is a code weighting feature that's more of yes, in research papers too, you could do that. Code weighting is more of a second round coding feature that we won't go over today, but you can add a numerical value to a code if you want to indicate sentiment or anything along a numbered scale. For instance, in the past, I've used it to indicate like true, false, or if someone agreed or disagreed. I would weight the code -1 for disagree and 1 for agree. Alrighty, and then you would just hit submit on that new code, and then you see that new code represented there. I am now going to go back into a transcript to show you what it looks like to create codes while you're actually viewing your data. So 2 different ways to code. Both ways you highlight the text you're interested in. And I always like to tell folks that you can hit the space bar, and this brings up the quick code widget. So this is really helpful and will maximize your analysis and make it so much more efficient. So you just hit the space bar. From here, if you do have a large code book, you can simply double click the code you're interested in, or you can search for it so that you don't have to scroll. But you can also create new codes from this quick code widget as well. So let's say I wanted this to be a subcode of that main code that we already created. I would simply type it in and then hit enter. And that both creates that code and applies it to the excerpt. I'm going to exit out of there. Whenever you're actively in an excerpt, you'll know, because up in the right-hand corner here, you'll see the selection info box is red, and you'll see the codes that you have attached to it. If at any time you want to delete a code, you would just hit X. And if you wanted to delete the whole excerpt, you would hit the X by that main title. To move on, you just simply click out of it. And if you ever want to access it again, you can hit the little bar to the left of the excerpt, and that activates it again. One other way to attach codes to your excerpts is to highlight and then select the little quotation mark on the bottom right. So that creates that excerpt, but notice that there are no codes attached to it. So you can either drag and drop codes or double click codes. You can also just leave it uncoded, and you can come back to it later in the excerpts tab. Before I open it up for questions on coding, I do want to go back to our main codebook area and show you some of the options. From here, if I wanted this to be a subcode of that new code, I have a couple different options to do that visually. I can hit the edit code icon, and this is where you can go in and edit that code. You can reparent it. So if you wanted this to be a subcode / child code under a parent code, you can do that. You can also merge codes with each other. So for instance, if you find that two codes are actually speaking to the same concept, but you don't want to lose all of the coding you've already did, you can actually just merge those codes together and choose the name under which it should fall. And then you don't lose any of your coding. So let's say I wanted this to be represented as a subcode. I can just go ahead and drag and drop that on top of the root code / parent code. And there you see it's represented as a subcode. Like I said before, this addition icon is how you can add more codes. This action panel houses options for collapsing or expanding your code book. So if you want to see all child codes or collapse them all up under their parent codes, you can reorder. You can also import codes from a spreadsheet, and you can also import descriptors from spreadsheets if you don't want to do that manually, and you can export them. The option of retroactive upcoding is a feature. For instance, if you have been coding with subcodes and have not been applying the parent codes, but you've done all your analysis and you realize, oh, for those analysis charts to be helpful, I really want the parent code attached too. All you have to do is come back here and hit retroactive upcode, and it will automatically apply all of the parent codes to those excerpts where the child code was also applied. So we can do a couple more codes. I'm not too creative this morning, apparently, with my code names. Yeah, so you can build out your code book. If you're coding in teams, some people have run into the problem when they're using grounded theory. They end up with 4,000 codes in the system because they had so many people coding and they weren't stopping to check and hold those meetings about what should actually be a code or not. So I always like to remind people of that too. To always check in and assess your code book. There's also a settings panel where you can automatically turn on upcoding. So right now it's on, so that means wherever I apply a child code, the parent code will also be applied. You can toggle code counts on and off if you're interested in seeing how many times that code has been applied. You can sort them alphabetically, and you can also use your own color scheme if you want to color code your codes. And there's also the search feature here too if you're looking for a specific code. When you hover over a code directly, this is one of the options I really love. If you hover over the quotation mark and click that, you can pull up all excerpts that have that code applied. So it's a really easy, efficient way to get to those coded excerpts. From here, if you click into them, you can look at it and you can even do some further coding. You can edit these codes, add new ones, and then you can cycle through. So this is a great feature if you want to do a second round coding and get more specific in that second round of coding. Last thing I'll say on this is that at any point from this screen, if you don't remember the context of when this was happening in the transcript, you can always hit view in context, and then it will take you back to exactly in the interview where you were where that was happening. So you can go back to that larger context. Alrighty, I threw a lot at you. So any questions? I wasn't keeping track of the chat.
Yes, there are a few questions, Sarah. First one has come up from Dedoose can be used to analyze interviews only and research papers. You have answered that. Mixed methods emphasis by Dedoose. Does it mean quantitative techniques also supported in
Yes,
Dedoose?
so let me go to the analysis tab and I'll show you some of the quantitative. I'm a qualitative researcher, I'll be honest, I don't use quant data in any of my studies, so I can't go into depth about why the descriptor ANOVA is so useful, but if you run t-tests, correlations, or ANOVAs in your analysis, you can do so within Dedoose itself. And you would just want to make sure that that quantitative data was housed in your descriptor tab, because that's where the quantitative data lies. But yeah, you can run distributions, and if you navigate to the demo project, that demo project has a lot of quantitative data in it. And so then you can go to these analysis charts and see the power of what Dedoose can do
Right.
quantitatively.
And the next question is, kindly repeat what is reparent used for? Reparent used for.
Sure, okay. So let me make a code that makes more conceptual sense. So let's say I had a code, a parent code / root code that was called methodology. There we go. So I was, for instance, doing interviews on people's favorite way to do research. So methodology was a code that I would, code large chunks of data with. But let's say I wanted to get more specific with what types of methodologies they were talking about. And so let's say it was qual, and there were some that were quant. So I would, for my analysis, like these are more analytical codes, so I would want these represented under the methodology code. So this you could drag and drop under methodology, and then you would see it there represented, and same thing with this one. Now the reparent option, that's if you accidentally drug one of these under the wrong parent. So two options, you can hit the edit code and reparent, and so you would just choose which code you want it to be associated with. Let's say I want this to be associated with test code, hit submit, and then it inserted that under that parent code, so it quote unquote reparented it. But you can also just drag and drop them. It's the easiest way.
Sure. And other question is, kindly insert one more new code like new code 2 so that they can see the steps.
Yes, and I did see that question, so, but I'll do one more. So you just hit the little addition icon, and then that brings up that little box for you, where you can title your code, add a description, a custom color if you would like, and then again, you can enable code weighting. And at any point, you can also add a new code when you're actually analyzing your data, and that you can do by highlighting the text, hitting the space bar, and then you could type in the new code and hit enter. So that also creates a new code for you.
Thank you, Sarah. That's the questions we had right till now. Okay,
Good
now
deal.
there is one more question. Yes. Is there interoperability between NVivo or Atlas TI and Dedoose? Number one. Second question is, can I transfer my codes from one software to another? I think that you have already answered, right?
Yes, but there are specifics to it. So on the Dedoose website, they've written out specific instructions. I know specific instructions from NVivo, but to transfer the actual projects, if you want to just transfer codes, yeah, that's even more easy because you can just export it into an Excel document. So anything in an Excel document can be uploaded into Dedoose very easily, codes, descriptors, etc. And there's a set format for how you would want to label those columns. It's very simple, like, title of the code, if it's a parent code or a child code. And so, yeah, you don't have to waste time manually adding them. You can just import them. And that is found in the home screen. If you hit import data, that's where you could, or no, I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. You would go to the action panel in codes and then hit import codes. And then it's going to ask you to upload an Excel file. Alrighty. We have about 20 minutes left, and I want to leave time on the back end for more questions too. So I am going to quickly show you how to add descriptors manually, just so that everyone knows how and knows how it behaves in the system. So I went to the main descriptors tab, and then I'm going to navigate to this set fields area over here on the left. And again, I would just hit the add field option, and I would title this. So let's go gender for this one. You could add a description. And then with field type, there are different types that you can put in here. For instance, if it's a number, if you had quantitative data that you were wanting to import, you could do date and time if you wanted to track change over time, text to just write it in, or option list. Most of the time, you will want to go with an option list. It's rare that the option list won't be more useful than text. So when at all possible, try to keep it an option list. And then you would add those options down below. So I'll type in man and then hit add. Woman, add, and then non-binary, and add. At any point, you can come back and rename these, delete them, add more, etc. So you're not tied to what you put in here initially. You can always come back and edit it. So I'm going to hit submit, and then you'll see that that gender field is now represented. If you do want to edit that descriptor, just go ahead and double click on it, and it will pull it back up. And so on and so on. You can add more. I'm just going to go ahead and put year here so that I can show you an example of attaching these. So when you want to link a descriptor / categorical variable to your piece of media, there's a couple ways to do this as well. You can go to your main media tab, go to that transcript that you're interested in, and then go to the descriptors column. Right now I notice it's a 0 because I don't have anything linked to it. I can go ahead and double click that 0, and it will bring you up to this window. I always like, this window can be pretty intimidating once you have a lot of descriptors. I always like to tell people to just focus on the lower right and the little button that says create and link descriptor. Once you hit that, it will pull up the box asking you which descriptors should be associated with this person / with this piece of media. So just choose man and year 3. And then you hit submit. Now this screen afterwards is just showing you what you just did. It's highlighted in green that there's now a descriptor called man3 that's attached to a media file. So just exit out of this, and then you'll see that represented right there. Yes, there is a descriptor attached to it. I think I should pause right there for any more questions about descriptors. You can also import those as well if you have a lot of variables that you're interested in. Okay, I will move along to the analysis tab. And for this, I'm actually going to go to a different. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm seeing your question now. So no, this was just an example of a descriptor that you could include in the system if you were interested in gender as a variable. But it could be anything you're actually interested in. And you don't have to use descriptors if you don't want to. So if you only want to rely on coding your data, you can.
I have a quick question. Can we have 2 sets of descriptors? I don't want to put all my descriptors together because I may want to also make a comparison between descriptors. So can a
Yes.
set of, it's possible?
Yes, and I'm going to go to the demo project here because they do have 2 different types of descriptor sets. So here and up top, you can choose if you want different sets to keep those more manageable and also to compare between them. So here they had community characteristics, more high-level variables, and then they had participant demographics as well.
Yeah.
So they had
Thank you.
a lot. Yep. So I'm going to go to my dissertation data to show you some of the power of these analysis charts. So when you navigate to the analysis tab, the first chart you'll automatically see is the code times descriptor chart. For qualitative researchers, there's always 3 to 4 main charts that I introduce them to first. But again, feel free to play around in all of these charts because there's a lot of great options. But one of them is the code times descriptor chart, because this is disaggregating all of your codes by a descriptor that you choose. So right now it's set on gender, but let's say I wanted it to be disaggregated by race. I would choose race. And then you'll see all of my codes here are represented vertically here on the left. We can scroll down and they're all disaggregated by those descriptor options. At any point on any of these analysis charts, you can click into them and it will show you the raw data behind the number that it's showing you. So that's always really useful if you want to start comparing between folks or pull out quotes, etc. I also like to tell people that in the upper right-hand corner, the normalized box is checked right now as a standard practice. Hopefully this will be changed in the next build. But if you're a qualitative researcher, you're going to want to uncheck that box because it could skew your data. So always check to make sure that that box is unchecked. And then you also have the option to view the raw code counts versus the percentage, and that's just a preference. You can also include the subcode count within these charts. And then there's also the hit or miss option. And honestly, I've never used this option in my research. If you want to know more about it, I can have my colleagues send a follow-up email afterwards. The other chart that I really like using is the descriptor times code chart. So just the inverse of this chart. This shows you all of your descriptors vertically on the left here, and then you can choose which code you're interested in viewing by those descriptors. So let's say I was interested in the abuse code. So now it's pulling up that code for me and showing the distribution of those. So the question, can we use Dedoose only for quantitative analysis? Yes, it's rare that people do that because I think most of the time quantitative researchers prefer an SPSS or other program. But you can, if you find that descriptors helpful, and if the analysis options under the quantitative charts speak to your research questions and solve that for you, you can absolutely use it just for quantitative data. The other chart I want to show you that is just based on codes. So I'll navigate to the code co-occurrence chart. And this is basically a huge heat map of your whole coding scheme. It's showing when two codes are overlapping on the same excerpt. So for instance, if you applied the same code to an excerpt, or if there are two different excerpts, but they're overlapping. So it's going to show where those two are interacting. The warmer the color, the higher the number. So I was trying to draw your attention to it. For instance, I'm immediately drawn to this 82 number. So when I hover over it, I see that it's showing me every time a participant talked about a coach interaction or relationship, they were also talking about a coercive power dynamic. So this chart can kind of help you see larger themes in your data that you may not have been aware of, or confirm or deny a hunch you had in your data. And again, you can always click in that box and it will bring up that raw data for you. At any point, if you want to export excerpts, it's really easy to do so, and you can do that from multiple different places. This is one of them. So if I wanted to export all excerpts where it was coded coach interaction and also power dynamic, I could just go directly to this chart and then hit export excerpts. And the utility of that, most people do that when they're actually in their writing stage, and it's easier to kind of manage and handle writing and copying and pasting from a Word document to another Word document. And also, if you want to work offline, you'd want to export those excerpts. Alrighty, the last chart I want to show you is the descriptor fields times code grid chart. So I really like this chart because it gives you a lot of control over what you actually want to see. You're basically building your own table. So it's going to ask you up here, which descriptors do you want added to this table? Genders and options, so I'm going to hit add. And I'm also going to do career status. And I'm going to hit add. Now, those two descriptors have been added to this table, but now I need to add some codes to it. So you can choose which codes you're interested in viewing along those two descriptors. And then it will automatically populate that table for you and disaggregate it along those descriptors that you chose. So for example, the class progress reports, 14 men talked about that. 3 of them were current players and 11 of them were former players. These charts can also be exported into Excel. It's really great for the bar graphs because it does export it as a bar graph, and you can quickly turn it into a more presentable graph in Excel, and you can include that in publications and presentations. Unfortunately, I'm not able to zoom the Dedoose window. It's as far zoomed in as it can go, and I know that's a flaw of presenting to folks, but there is, if you're interested in using Dedoose or you just want to see if it feels right to you, there is the 30-day free trial. You just go to the website, sign up and hit download, and if you don't log in, you won't be charged. So that's the other thing people like about Dedoose. You can upload all of your data to it. Let's say I did this project, I'm done with it. I can log out. If I don't log back in, I won't be charged for the months I don't use it, but my data will still be preserved in the system. So if I want to come back a year later, that's when my contract with Dedoose would start up again, and I would only pay month by month. So the question of, are these codes already built in? Like we just need to input the descriptor or whatever applies to our study. No. So if you have a qualitative project, you will be analyzing your data and applying your own coding scheme to it. So qualitative research, as I'm sure you all know, you're trying to find meaning in that data, and you do so by attaching codes to those smaller chunks of your data. So you'll see in the demo project, there are codes already in there for you, just so you can play around and see what the system has to offer. But once you start your new project by going to the projects tab and hitting create new project, you'll start off with everything clean. No problem. Okay, any other questions? And I'm happy to, like I said, it's a lot of information, especially if you haven't used Dedoose before. But if you want to go in and play around, and if you have any questions, or if you want a more advanced workshop in the future, you can always email me. And I put my email address in the chat. So that way you have access to me directly and you don't have to go through the support email. I will stay on for another 5 minutes in case you do have questions, but just know that, again, I really appreciate being invited.
Sarah, I wanted to ask you questions. As far and thanks a lot for that wonderful presentation, a small presentation wherein at least we got an idea as to how to use my qualitative data in Dedoose. Now, as far as I can see, codes are really important, right? The way I am creating, and you have already mentioned about excerpts, then going ahead with the multiple codes. So I think a lot of effort has to be focused and to work with the codes basically, right? And everything depends upon our coding system. So codes are there, subcodes are there. Then you were even talking about free forms. What are free forms over here? Because
yes, so those were the memos that I was talking about. So when you are coding, for instance, you can always attach a little memo to an excerpt, and that's just any sort of writing or like analysis that you're actually thinking about in the moment. You can type out and attach that to that individual excerpt so that you don't forget about it later. So that's where you can just write free form notes to yourself at any time.
now, one more quick question that I wanted to ask you is that when I'm doing qualitative research, I can go ahead with review of literature as I'm seeing in the other softwares where they are using majority of the scholars. So do we have that also you are showcasing, and you have answered one of the participants that yes, I can read a lot of prior literature. I can do the coding and I can analyze also. Secondly, I can even perform narrative analysis. And you specifically mentioned about ethnographic analysis also side by side. Now, there are the other variety of analysis also, like discourse analysis, discursive analysis. Those also are we able to do nicely? That's number one. Are we allowed to do in Dedoose also? That's my first question to you.
Yes, and discourse analysis, one of the projects, we did a discourse analysis of over 220 hours of video because it was broadcast. So you can do discourse analysis with live on video if you want to track also like how people are saying things, you can do so on live video, or you can do that in transcript form as well. So you can do any type of analysis. It's just the matter of, is it in text data form? Like if it's in text, you can upload it into Dedoose and do any type of analysis. Same thing with ethnography. If you have field notes from being in the field, you can upload those into Dedoose and code them just like you would a transcript.
Now, one more thing, since you mentioned about the social networking platforms like Twitter, YouTube, so do we have any kind of special technique again to import the data from Twitter platform to Dedoose, or is it directly? How do you handle the Twitter, those sentences that I have to retrieve from Twitter to Dedoose? Is it directly, or there is something else like Twitter in other softwares? I see that especially in R and all in Python, wherein they say that either you will have to take the approval from the Twitter, or you need to send them the information that yes, you are retrieving the data only for the research purposes. Do we have those kind of complexities even in Dedoose with Twitter data?
So I think Dedoose actually makes it really easy. So there's a whole blog written on the Dedoose website about how to retrieve Twitter data, download it, and insert it into the system. I don't know the actual, there's somewhere on the Twitter website where you can search and then do like a mass download of those tweets, but they'd be publicly available tweets. And that's, I mean, your own ethics as a researcher, like you wouldn't want to pull data from someone who has a private account probably, but you can easily download all of that into a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
In that spreadsheet, you upload it into Dedoose. And if those answers, they will automatically be coded by Dedoose by the question number or the question theme that you input into that spreadsheet. But again, there is a whole blog on the Dedoose website that speaks to those exact steps if any of you are interested in analyzing Twitter data.
To that. Okay. Now, one more thing I've seen that here in till whatever information you have provided, we are handling only the English language, right?
No.
No, we can use multiple languages.
Yes, that was the update to the most recent version 9. There are 5 different language options included, and when you log in, when you go to the login screen, you can just drop down and choose which language you want the system to be in.
What about the analysis part? For example, I come from India. I have a lot of data in Indian languages. So do I have to again translate those sentences or statements into English language and then analyze it, or I can directly import the Indian language sentences and then can import?
You
Or
can import Indian language. You do not have to translate it at all.
so we can analyze that. That's bingo. I think that's a big good thing about Dedoose, that yes, if you are telling me that yes, Indian Hindi language, I can go ahead and I can analyze in Hindi language also. I think that's a great thing for us to use Dedoose in that case. So thank you for that information also. Same goes with the videos also in that particular language only. Like I can analyze the Hindi videos, or let's say Telugu or Kannada or Tamil, those languages also.
Yeah, again, that would just be up to you understanding it as the researcher, but in the system, yes, absolutely. You can upload it in Tamal, for example, yeah.
Sure. I think that's what I wanted to ask you. And are we free? I mean, Dedoose in future. I mean, I was surprised that one of our participants did question that integration with R or Python. Are you planning to go ahead with that also as a free and open source kind of a thing, or it would be going ahead with priced? Because you see, a lot of work is being done on qualitative side with NLP, with text analysis especially. So any idea that yes, the data from our platform or Python platform can be imported into Dedoose also, or no, not at the moment?
I am not informed enough on that to know, quite honestly, but always happy to meet with you and troubleshoot to see if it works.
Sure, definitely. I will be able to take care. So I leave it to the floor if somebody else would like to ask her any question. Otherwise, she has given you her mail ID, and maybe we can reach her again later on. So is that the same?
Yeah, absolutely. If you start playing around in the system and you have questions, feel free to email me at any time. Happy to talk through it.
Right. Thank you, Sarah. I think with this, I think we should really appreciate you giving us some of your valuable time on a working day of yours, and I really appreciate it once again. And thank you for joining us. And I think there would be another in future. We would be inviting you once again, wherein in-depth understanding of Dedoose should be there for us also. So, okay.
Sounds
So,
great. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
yeah, thank you. Same to you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, participants. All 36 of you are here, and today I was just making a note, as to how the things were going on. So we can see today that the do's in a different manner is certainly useful for us. So some of us, what I can do, I can get that Twitter data is what I'm interested in, number one. And number two, today we have got the information that yes, this kind of platform is available where we can even go ahead and handle the multilingual languages like Hindi, Telugu, Kannada, and if you have the data over there also, so we can definitely I think use Dedoose for why I was asking her those questions was I'm able to see that lot of unlike Atlas TI or later on you will see Max QDA or even hyper research or research Probalis, because those individuals are also going to join us up very soon. You will see that there is a lot of differences in the way they are analyzing with the qualitative data, especially at the text analysis itself. Now, yes, I would be showcasing to you, Apurva. Just give me today. We had a very short kind of a session because it's a working day for her, and she has specially taken the time for us only to give us this particular session. I was thinking, I had a doubt whether she would cancel it today or not. Luckily, she did not. And moreover, the climate is very bad over there. So, and that's why she took up only for 1 hour, thinking that, okay, there the government in that particular area is just giving them the facility of electricity only for few hours. So therefore she was in a hurry to complete with our session also. Papers, I will definitely give it to you, because each one of them are there. And in future, again, we would be having hands-on experience like Yasha was, asking us. And and tomorrow when we have got Max QDA session, you will see that she would be giving you hands-on session. They are going to send us the username and the password. So I would be sharing it with all of you tomorrow. So you can definitely go ahead and, download it. If not by tomorrow, by Sunday again, there would be one more person who would be giving us the hands-on experience for us on Max QDA. So I think we will go ahead and, definitely play around with that particular software also, which they are giving us for 1 month. And I will just speak to Sarah also to give us some kind of a leverage, why she is a bit scared to give us more than and asking us to go with the trial version is the fact that your data should not be lost. And as such, she has told you that everything is on cloud and it is not on the like installation and everything, unless and until you are not dedicated kind of a person. So let me see how to go about it in that manner. So I thank you all once again for joining up this session tonight. And tomorrow again, 8 o'clock, tomorrow we have got the session from Tamara, who is coming from, representing Max QDA. And you will see one more. Now, you see, when you should, the way that you should be able to understand, no need to write the names for the attendance, because from the back end, I have already taken care so that, the attendance is being captured. And today, we will also come to know how many of us were, entered the entire session, and how many of us are just leaving away in between whenever we feel like. I mean, all of us are grown up and we know the etiquettes. When she is like a guest, they are the invited guest. So we should have that kind of a leverage that, yes, we are joining up at least 10 minutes or 5 minutes before the guest arrives. And this is something we all have learned basically. And I still see that in between these sessions, only some of us are joining us up, or we are continuously leaving away in between without any kind of a thing. So please, yes, I can understand that's internet issues. I'm not denying that part of it. However, on a daily basis, it is really bad. So maybe 5 minutes earlier, 7:55, all of us can be there, and that's a good gesture for her. I mean, to whosoever the guest is. Anyways, I'm just ending up right now. And tomorrow, yesterday's video, I have recorded from my side, and today also I have recorded it, so it would be available in the drive itself. So some of you who have missed it, you can have a look at it. So tomorrow again at 8 o'clock, we would be joining up for our session. Tomorrow it is Max QDA. It is not on. Oh yeah, tomorrow is 3rd, so we don't have. So tomorrow I can take a class from 8 to 10. Class, I'm saying the session. So tomorrow I will take up in the evening only from 8 to 10. So almost all of us can be there. And one, we can definitely have a look at it as the comparative study about the various softwares that we have got. And secondly, I will go ahead and introduce, I would say tomorrow, let's start off with the field notes. If field notes and field, and what exactly we have to understand what field is, and what, or data is also something which is missing for me. So I would be taking up that one also. Abhishek, do you think that I should take up 12:30 with just 8 or 9? If you say yes, then I would be there by 12:30. If not, then 8 to 10, I would be there. So all of us can be taking care about that. Ma'am, we will be having a session on framing questionnaire. Yes. And a wonderful person is coming in to make us understand as to how many kinds of questionnaires would be there, and what kind of things we can. And I think he is from Edinburgh University or from Erasmus University. So one of these two individuals is also going to join us for questionnaire designing in that. Okay, so that would be taken care of. And tomorrow, if all of you, I will be there by 1 p.m. If others are not there, I can join up. So it's a common consensus. It's like a family. If you all say that, yes, it's been a long time for us, then I would be there. It's okay for me at 12:30 if everyone feels comfortable. So 1, 2, 3, or if you want, we can make it 12:30. Okay, then I would be there by 12:30, and then we can have a small introduction about data collection, field, and from there, because field is another area where I need to focus upon, and then comes the interviews. So I will start off with data collection as well as the field. So these two, and I will be joining up by 12:30, or maybe by 12 also we can join up tomorrow. I don't have any, or make it at 12:30. I think that's better. 12:30, 1:30, and then 2:30. It is fine. So we won't have the session at 8 p.m. tomorrow. No, we would. Session is not there tomorrow. It would be on 4th, and tomorrow my session would be there. Apurva, don't fall. Miss me. I'm also there. They're all the guests. So my session would be there tomorrow. Okay. So in the evening, again, I have to repeat myself for data collection as well as the field part of it. So no session tomorrow. Tomorrow, it's not tomorrow. It is day after tomorrow. Tamara from Max QTA. Okay. So till then, thank you. And videos, both yesterday's and today's, would be, you can see it in the morning also. Take care. Till then, thank you and take care. Bye. Yes, good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, ma'am.
Bye, Asha. Asha, that was a wonderful question that you have asked, and I was just looking forward whether you would be there. In fact, she did not take you through completely because it was just an introductory part of it. If you go into the depth, coding individually, number one, In fact, I was just thinking about you only when I was myself getting introduced to this particular software, and then I saw the whole thing. Team members, there is no need to write your this thing, because from the back I'm getting the attendance captured now, so no need to
Yes,
write it.
I found the coding part very well organized and well thought
Yes,
of. Actually,
and
for qualitative, it was excellent.
yes, and maybe tomorrow I will just take you through again the Dedoose, and I will show you why those statistically, coding and the descriptors are very important. So when you will start analyzing, you or even Abhishek also, and you will see what kind of a things, it gives to you. And that part of it she did not, and maybe she wants me to invite her later on, because that's what she was thinking, and maybe she wants me to start off with the things. I don't know how it would be. We would yes, Abhishek, we would be doing it in depth. Don't worry, this is just an introduction to certain things that we have got, and it's a true introduction, because everybody thinks that there are only 3 softwares which are available, and that's not true. Now I'm showcasing it. Now see, in vivo, people are highly mistaken about it, and once you will see it, you will understand where it stands off, where Atlas TI stands, where Max QDA is coming in, and how the other things are coming into the picture. So maybe you will see it very soon, once the other things are also will be present. There will be no session at 8 p.m. tomorrow, Jagmohan, not from a guest. However, from my side, there is a session tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Okay, so don't miss out, because I would be speaking on data collection as well as the field, what field is and how you're supposed to select your field. All those thing questions also will be coming into. Okay, so that is it. So let's end up, and all of you can go by 9:15. We have concluded our session today, and maybe tomorrow I would like to take up in the afternoon as well as in the evening also. Till then, thank you, take care, enjoy your dinner, and be safe, be healthy, and happy. Good night. Bye bye.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night. Bye bye, Apurva.